Good morning, people. Welcome to the top 10 episodes of Transformers. For those of you who don't know, my name is Robert Aldrich. I am a novelist. I'm here promoting my two newest books, Rest for the Wicked and Same Fell. They are available downstairs in the dealer's room. I am hoping to all that is good and holy my voice will hold out. We will see. Coincidentally, they're both cyberpunk. Not that I'm like a hardcore cyberpunk author, they're just the first two books my publisher optioned. One is a cyberpunk haunted house story, the other is a dystopian love story. Come down to the table in the dealer's room. I'm all the way in the back, right next to the super art fight table. I will be happy to sell them. But tonight we're talking about Transformers, one of the longest running science fiction franchises in television history. And here we go. Before we jump into talking about the 10 episodes, a real quick disclaimer. This is not all of the Transformers franchise. I have been reviewing each episode very, very meticulously, and I'm going to go into the standards of how I've reviewed them. This takes a lot of time, and I'm currently embroiled in a terrible, dark hell that is the Japanese episodes. I've wrapped up the Headmaster series, which anybody here who has seen will attest to how awful they are, and I'm currently working on Super God Master Force, which is even worse. I've got one more season before I get to Beast Wars. So right now this is limited to all of Gen 1, seasons 1 through 4. God. And Headmasters. Who's told you Beast Wars is included? It is? No! You hate Beast Wars? Why? Wait, and I'm not asking this facetiously. Did you give Beast Wars a good chance? Yeah, I totally get you. When Beast Wars first came out, I was very opposed to it. It would be years later that I gave it a chance. I got to tell you, man, I encourage you to give it another try. It's a masterpiece. Guys. It's his opinion. It's perfectly fine. He didn't say Beast Wars is awful and everybody who hates it has an ugly haircut. It's okay. But I feel the same way about Animated. A lot of the fans did not give Animated a fair shake. Animated's a really good show. Okay, so real quick. I want to go into a little bit of history of the franchise because a lot of people don't understand exactly how impossible it is that Transformers exists. The Transformers is the result of a bunch of really once-in-a-lifetime world-changing events that we really could not have predicted. The first was sweeping deregulation of broadcast laws under the Reagan administration in the early 1980s. This is going to lead the FTC to loosen their regulations on who could contribute money to children's entertainment. Prior to 82, 83, toy manufacturers, cereal makers were forbidden from providing any money that would go to children's entertainment. FTC would loosen those laws. All of a sudden, every toy manufacturer threw all the money in existence at cartoons to basically make commercials. The other thing that would happen is the deregulation of the cable channels, providing a sudden multitude of broadcast hours that had never been seen before. You're going to have shows and networks like Nickelodeon that are going to have broadcast hours they need to fill, and they're going to be importing cheap anime. Cheap anime from Japan is going to raise the standard of art and narrative complexity that American broadcast is going to try to compete with. This is going to give rise to the 80s cartoons. Specifically, we're going to see Transformers. Hasbro, a toy manufacturer that's been around since the 1960s, who coined the term action figure as opposed to fashion figure, which was like Barbie, because of a bet that they couldn't sell Barbie dolls to boys. That's where the G.I. Joe figure originally came from. It was a bet with one of the owners of the Hasbro company with his wife. He said, I could sell anything to anybody. She said, I bet you couldn't sell dolls to boys. So so in the 1980s, Hasbro is going to get a whole bunch of Marvel Comics writers to write stories involving the Diaclone toy figures and figures from the Microman series from Japan. They're going to import whole swaths of these figures, and the result is going to be Gen 1. You can see Optimus Prime or Convoy in Japan. You see Jazz, Sideswipe, Mirage, Wheeljack, and Prowl on the end there, above him. And over here, you see most of the Decepticons. Two totally disparate toy companies that they're going to fuse these figures into characters to make Transformers. Now, Transformers is originally going to broadcast in 1984 as a 3-part series called More Than Meets the Eye. It was just a pilot to see if it would succeed. By the time the 3rd episode had aired, they had already commissioned the 1st season. Excuse me. The story revolved around an energy crisis, which was reflective of the time. In the 1980s, there was a huge issue with oil or energy dependability. That's going to be reflected in the art of the time. You're going to see that with the Transformers. The general premise of Transformers, at least as far as Gen 1 goes, is a bunch of Marines and cage fighters in a guerrilla war against construction workers and college professors. Those are the Decepticons and the Autobots. That's the underlying story behind Transformers. That's the deeper issues at play and the social constructs that are being discussed. But really, the fun of it is giant alien robots that turn into cars, because shut up, that's cool. Oi. All right, so in time, Transformers is going to evolve, and it's going to go through a lot of different iterations over the 30-plus years it's been in existence. The first 2 years, we're going to have what we call Gen 1, which is set in modern times with science fiction elements, but it's really going to be set in the modern world. After 1986, with the landmark movie, which is a really underrated animated movie on its own, forgetting Transformers fandom, the story is going to shift into really advanced sci-fi and into space opera. After Transformers, you're going to have the rise of Beast Wars that's going to continue Gen 1. This is technically part of the same timeline as Gen 1. Then you're going to have the Unicron trilogy and a very, very hated series called Robots in Disguise. Yo. Yes?
I really like Robots in Disguise. I think it's an underrated show. The toys were really great. Fuck you.
Well done, sir. Many fans would disagree. And that's that, and more power to you, buddy. If you liked Robots in Disguise, keep that up. Don't ever lose that. After the Unicron trilogy, which is comprised of Armada, Energon, and Cybertron, you're going to have Transformers animated that's going to come about in the wake of the live-action Bay movies, which, love them or hate them, have made all the money. Pretty much anything that Avengers didn't make, these made. After animated, you're going to see Transformers Prime, which is going to try to reconcile the differences between the live-action movies, the video games, and Gen 1 into a cohesive story. After Transformers Prime, you're going to have the new one called Robots in Disguise, which I have not watched very much of, so I'm not going to say a lot about, but I've heard very good things, so we'll see. All right. Any questions thus far? No? Good. Fantastic. Damn it. You got your hand up. What? Yeah, that's the first Robots in Disguise. That took place after Beast Machines, but before the Unicron trilogy. Yes?
Is it true that, like, every episode they didn't really have a planned storyline for a season, they just wrote an episode on the spot?
Which one are you talking about? Gen 1, no, they had a planned season. The one you're kind of talking about is the Unicron trilogy with Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. Everything about that show was a nightmare for the producers and the people working on it. I don't know why I keep yelling, I have a microphone. Everything about that show was a nightmare, and that's where you're getting we didn't know if it was 13 episodes, 26 episodes, 32 episodes, and it really undermined the story's cohesive movement. Gen 1 was designed to be non sequitous. Each episode was meant to be self-contained. A couple of episodes would build on one another, especially at the beginning of the first season, but after that they moved away towards standalone episodes. All right, so how the hell did this list get compiled? And why is it taking me so damn long to expand it? Pardon me. Okay, so, excuse me. Right up front, this list is very subjective. Plain and simple. Anytime you try to compile a list of the best of anything, but especially art, there's gonna be subjectivity to it. There's no way around it. I made every attempt to try to be clinical, but it happens. In many ways, I wanted this to be a starting point and discussion for fans, for people to argue and say, no, this episode was better, this episode was not. Since I'm only through Headmasters, obviously there's still a lot left to review. And as I was telling some other people, I can watch about one episode a day, especially at the Japanese show. After that point, the human mind can only handle so much insanity. So, what were the criteria for the show? The first is art. Going through, watching the episode, looking for good art. Not just depictions of the characters, looking for good composition, looking for good frame development. Seeing how the actual characters were drawn, the backgrounds were drawn, the landscape, anything and everything. Yes?
Like levels of Captain Ed?
Yes.
I remember that now.
Yes. I stand by my assertion. Captain N is underrated. Anyway, second, moving on. The second criteria is animation, which is different from art. Some of the episodes, especially in Gen 1, were very well drawn and had really crappy animation. A couple of episodes are the exact opposite. The animation is very smooth, very cohesive, but the art just isn't really that good. The shot composition is really poor. A really great example of this is Iron City, Scrap Iron City. I can't remember the episode off the top of my head. It's the one where Optimus gets cut up and they make the alligator out of his body. Yeah. Terrible art. Really, really terrible art, but really good animation. It's a really good indication that it's a really good demonstration that the two are not one and the same. Moving on. Narrative. How good was the story? How good was the telling of the story? How good was the dialogue? Now, that's for a standalone element. The opposite to that, performance. The opposite to the criteria, to the narrative, is the legacy. How does it build on what we know about Transformers? Episodes that help establish their origin. Episodes that tell us a lot about Cybertron, Cybertronian culture, those came in. The next was performance. Sorry guys, my voice is really killing me. Everybody knows Frank Welker, who is possibly the greatest voice actor to ever work. Everybody knows Peter Cullen, who was really excellent. He played Optimus Prime, Ironhide, and did a couple of other voices. Guys like Michael Bell get a lot of respect. Chris Latta, who did Starscream, is seriously underrated in this show. There are definitely episodes he phoned it in. There's definitely episodes he was probably drunk or high or both. But there are some episodes where, especially when you keep in mind that he was delivering these lines in a really squeaky falsetto, he delivers amazing performances. Chris Latta is seriously underrated in this show, and it really is a tribute to his voice acting abilities, some of the episodes that he delivers, especially when he's playing opposite Dr. Archival, whom appeared out of nowhere, disappeared out of nowhere because he was a stupid character. They should have just called him Dr. Mindbender and just owned it. Anyway, lastly, is just general overall awesomeness. How damn cool was the episode? Because Optimus being turned into an alligator is just fun. Now, so each episode was watched and very much scrutinized, and every scene was scrutinized for art, animation, how was the narrative, and it was all tallied up. Each time anything came up, this is really good art, this is a really good animation sequence, hey, they talked about Cybertron, that kind of thing, I would document it. The number of the episodes that got the highest score are what made the list. Yes, sir.
So is that supposed to be Undar's score?
Damn straight. Don't pretend. I don't really know what the Master Sword is doing up there. That's much later. Number 10. The Dweller in the Depths. Who wrote it? Paul the Man Dini, the guy who gave us Batman the Animated Series. And it shows. This is an excellent episode. This is season 3, episode 19. No one remembers this episode. Basically, the Decepticons get onto Cybertron, try to unearth the Great Darkness, and they discover Cthulhu. There's this giant monster. There's actually a bunch of monsters that are in no way inhumanoids. Shh. That comes up. It drains the energy from Transformers and turns them into robotic, vampirific zombies that are apparently monochrome. It's a really, really good episode that has incredible pacing, builds tremendous tension. There's genuine, palpable fear at play because up until the very end, it's really not clear if the Autobots and the Decepticons are going to survive. You finally get to see RC kick somebody's ass, which it really doesn't happen outside the movie, and it's a shame. By the way, if you're an RC fan, really don't watch the Japanese shows. If you thought she got undercut in season 3, man, it's just awful. But Dweller in the Deep is really one of the few excellent episodes of season 3. The quality of the show tanked after the movie. The animation went down, the art quality went down, the stories turned into really cheap pulp sci-fi, and coming from the guy that wrote Rest for the Wicked, that's saying something. They're really subpar. But Dweller in the Deep is a rare exception. And if you have the chance, check it out on YouTube. It may be worth buying the single episode on Amazon Prime or something like that. Really good episode. Check it out. Any question? Yes? No? Good? Okay, fantastic. All right. Number 9. The Search for Alpha Trion. Season 2, episode 30. Oh my God, that was a long season 7. Anybody remember this episode by name? This is not really about Alpha Trion. It's about the female Autobots that had supposedly gone extinct. Let's see, that's Chromia, Firestar, I can't remember the rest of them. RC is nowhere to be seen, which is a bit incongruous. Really, the coolest thing about the episode, though, was Elita 1. Optimus's possible girlfriend, possible sister that nobody ever talks about again. Oh, possibly, yes. The reason why is later in season 2, the aerial bots are going to go back in time. Shut up. And they're going to end up helping the Autobots at the start of the Great War. They're going to meet Orion Pax and his girlfriend Ariel. Orion Pax is going to be turned into Optimus Prime by Alpha Trion. Ariel is going to be turned into Elita 1. But in this episode, Optimus is going to refer to Elita 1 as very much like his sister. Yes, Optimus Prime is really more like the $6 Million Man. He was rebuilt for war. Now, Elita 1 is a wonderful character. This is the only time we ever see her in the show, and it's a damn shame because she's been running this underground resistance against Shockwave the entire time Optimus has been asleep on Earth. There's been no mention of her. Even all the Autobots think she's dead. She's been that good at her job. The reason the Decepticons don't have control of Cybertron, the reason Decepticons have not spread across the galaxy is her doing. Very much like Luke needs to shut up because Leia lost Alderaan and still did her damn job. Elita 1 does not get nearly enough credit as an interesting character. They have not done enough with her in any franchise, and they need to pick up the slack because she is amazing. Not only that, she has a superpower. She can stop time because shut up, it's sci-fi. She has this power where she can stop time, but it practically kills her. Naturally, because this is the 80s and we can't have women characters be that strong, they have to call for help from the boy Autobots who forgot the girls existed. Optimus and the others come to her aid. Optimus then goes rogue, taking Elita 1 to Alpha Trion, who apparently was built old. Because that's how Autobots work, apparently. Now, at the end, the Autobots are going to return to Earth. The female Autobots are going to be left to continue their war against Shockwave. They're never talked about again, with the exception of Alita 1, with the exception of RC. We never see any female Autobots again until Black Arachnia will show up in Beast Wars and become possibly the most famous Transformer of the last 20 years. And this is a real missed opportunity. I've heard that the comics talk about Alita 1 occasionally, but the GoBots have gotten more screen time in Transformers than Alita 1 has. And I just want to underscore exactly how terrible that is, that Psykill has been seen more in the Transformers than Alita 1. Yeah, any questions? Good, yes? Jesus, God. He said female GoBots got more screen time than the female Transformers. Everybody was real excited about Windblade, the fan-made Transformer from a couple of years ago, who's got the kabuki face. And like, she was like the first new female Autobot after RC. It was like, y'all completely forgot about Chromia and the rest of them, didn't you? Sexist bastards. What? Chromia's in the Windblade series? No! Hot damn, that's all. Oh crap, that hurt. Thank God. Thank you for letting me know. I have some faith in humanity again. That's Nautica.
Yeah, she's a female scientist who's in more than CI right now.
Wow. Now, I knew about Strongarm, I think her name is, who's voiced by Constance Zimmer, who, I'm sorry, I'd pay to watch read the phone book. Constance Zimmer is seriously underrated. She's a great actor. Anybody watch Boston Legal? She was great on it. She was on S.H.I.E.L.D. for the first half of the second or third season. She was the opposite of Coulson that he was flirting with for a little while. Yeah, anyway, okay. So, moving on. Number 8. This is the only episode you're going to get from Headmasters, because Headmasters is objectively terrible. In Transformers Headmasters, does anybody remember clearly Season 4, all 3 episodes of it from Transformers Gen 1? Headmasters kind of starts the same way, where the Decepticons make this huge incursion against Cybertron, and the Autobots have to rally together to stop it. As they're fighting, the incursion in Headmasters doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is Headmasters Season 2. This is the mystery of Planet Master. There's a planet out there called Master. I'm just going to let that set the standard for how stupid Headmasters is, okay? So, as the Autobots are fighting the Decepticons, the Autobots are losing terribly because they haven't been winning for millions of years. They're saved by 5, count them 5 new Autobots that nobody has ever heard of, led by Cerebros, who has apparently been sitting out the war at this time, even though the war started in 1984 and ran through 2006, 2007. You guys remember the war, right? Because it was a decade ago. So clearly we all remember it. The show was set in 2007. Cerebros comes to save the Autobots. We don't know where the hell he's been except on Planet Master. They make references to him running these wars against the Decepticons that nobody's heard of. Only Cup remembers Cerebros, even though they've apparently never met before. I really can't underscore how terrible Headmasters is. If any Transformer fans have been thinking, oh good, I've got to watch the Japanese shows, do yourself a favor, don't. Just watch Gen 1 again. Like seriously, just stick to the first season, you'll be fine. And I'm going to tell you why it made the list. We get to see Scorponok, who is the most stereotypical, cliche anime villain. He's literally never shown except in the shadows like this until halfway through the first season. Even when he's standing in the middle of the damn room talking to Galvatron, he's still always cloaked in shadow. I'm serious, this is an awful show. And it sounds like terrible awful, and it's not, it's just awful. There are some really cool scenes in these first couple of episodes because they try to work in all the Autobots and all the Decepticons. We get to see all the Combiners fight all the Combiners. We get to see Omega Supreme, Defensor, and Superion fight against Devastator, Minosaur, and Bruticus. All in one shot. It's really cool. We get to see all the Triple Changers. We get to see Rodimus and Optimus fighting alongside one another, which we had never seen before. Rodimus actually kind of redeems himself. Even better, we get to see Soundwave and Blaster fight for a third time. We're going to talk about the first time they fought, and everybody knows the movie, where you actually get to see Blaster frickin' elbow drop Soundwave, and it's excellent. Spoiler alert, Blaster and Soundwave are both killed, and they're fighting against one another in the most ridiculous way possible. It's like out of how Padme dies in episode 3. They just lose the will to live. That's the explanation they're given. No, wait. It's gonna get better in a second. They rebuild the characters exactly the same way as they were. Soundwave and Blaster both have the same memories of them. I don't know why they call them having died and come back to life, but they do. I'm sorry, Blaster has a new color scheme, that's it. For those of you wondering, Optimus dies later in the third episode. Again, it's kind of a trend. He's trying to catch up with Daniel Jackson. Optimus dies again to save Cybertron from something. It's not really explained what. The Decepticons are trying to get to the core of Cybertron to get at something. It's not explained what, but Optimus stops them and then throws himself into the something to stop the something bad from happening. This really isn't explained. I didn't miss something. I rewound and watched the episodes again to try to see if I could figure out what was going on. It's not explained. Optimus dies again. Halfway through the season, Rodimus surrenders control of the Autobots to Cerebrus, a guy who hasn't been around for most of the war, so we can go off and find a planet where there will be no warfare. And we never hear from Rodimus again. I'm gonna repeat. Don't watch Headmasters. If you've not seen the Japanese show, you're not missing anything. This is the one good episode. All right, any questions? Fantastic. All right, yes.
Are you aware of the Australian dubbed Headmasters? So I don't know where to find them.
Please tell me they're drunk.
They're these like hideously bad, made in like the late 80s as a cash-in. As a cash-in on like Headmasters because they wanted to continue Transformers.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything about Transformers, so they just renamed all the characters.
Holy crap, I've got to watch that. That sounds like a train wreck. Holy crap. I will try to, because that sounds awful. But that sounds like that would push Headmasters over the border of being just terrible to being funny terrible, like 70s Kung Fu bad. Wow, that's awesome. I gotta check that out. All right, we gotta move on. All right, number 7. Dark Awakenings. All right. For those of you who don't remember this episode because you blocked it out of PTSD, I don't blame you. Optimus comes back from the dead. They actually find the Autobots are being pursued by the Decepticons, and they seek refuge on a mausoleum that they apparently forgot they had. And Optimus is there. He rescues them and then promptly tries to kill them because reasons. I don't want to give away the story because this is an absurdly good episode. This is one of the few episodes that makes season 3 worth watching at all. Here's Optimus saving them. He's not himself. He is clearly a zombie. And the episode culminates in him and Rodimus fighting one another for control of the Autobots and control of the Matrix. This is unquestionably some of Peter Cullen's best voice acting. This is an emotional, gut-wrenching episode. It's dumb, but it's really, like the plot that's actually at play really doesn't make a lot of sense and it leaves a lot of gaping plot holes. Don't worry about that. It's incredibly gut-wrenching. The voice actor who played Rodimus, I want to say Terry Johnson, and that's not right. No, no, he was only in the movie. It wasn't Terry Johnson, was it? Anyway, the guy who plays Rodimus, this is one of his best performances in the entire show. This is definitely one of Cullen's best performances, and as the guy who originated Eeyore, that's saying something. This is an emotional episode. This is really fantastic, and the final scenes between Optimus and Rodimus are gut-wrenching. You will truly feel for the anguish Optimus is undergoing. Optimus ends up surrendering control of the Matrix because he doesn't beat Rodimus, because, come on, and ends up sacrificing himself to save the Autobots. This is a really, really hard episode for a lot of Transformer fans to watch. It's okay if you tear up, you're among friends. This is, I really can't underscore, really good episode, really dodgy plot, but really well written and really, really well executed. So yeah, really also unsettling episode as it ends because we watch Optimus being eroded away by the trap he's setting, he's springing. Yes, sir, in the back.
I also like to add that it was pretty traumatic seeing all the grave, since they were that giant grave ship, dive into the sun.
Yes.
Any chance of them being revived was gone.
Yeah, no. So in the opening, when they come to the mausoleum, it's this giant floating space platform because sci-fi. And Optimus sends it into the sun. And it's got all the Autobots from yesteryears, Ironhide, Huffer, Hound, that died in the Great War that we all saw, or died in the Battle of Autobot City. They're all there. So yeah, he's right. There's no resurrecting them. They're not coming back. And that alone is really, really unsettling. But seeing Optimus get worn away and eroded away as the episode ends is also really, it's surprisingly graphic that it got through on TV. But yeah, not an easy episode to watch. All right. Any questions? Okay. Yes, sir. Dick Gaudier? Really? Okay. Dick Gaudier. Dick Gaudier and Cullen turn in career-defining performances in this episode. Really strongly recommend it. Now, this is the number 7 best episode of Transformers. From here on out, all we have is pre-movie. So, something like that. All right. So, number 6, Megatron's Master Plan, Part 2. What? Oh yeah, hell yeah, this is great. I like citing this episode because this is one of the things that, as much as I'm a Transformers fan, as much as I love the fandom is impossible to please, because this was one of the episodes that they used as the basis for the 3rd live-action movie. So, Transformers, the 2007 live-action Transformers and Revenge of the Fallen, new franchise, new story, they're taking it in new directions, they're trying new things, the fans attack it. This is terrible. We want more things more like Gen 1. Okay, that's fair. They released Dark of the Moon, which is basically Megatron's Master Plan combined with another earlier episode called Ultimate Doom. The fans then attacked them. You ripped off Gen 1. There was no pleasing it at that point. So, there are plenty of legitimate reasons to not like the live action movies. We don't need to make up reasons. And that was a made up reason.
He ripped off Gen 1 because he did it poorly. He did not do it fairly to Gen 1. He ripped off the Daniel.
Listen,
That's not one of the problems.
yeah, there are plenty of valid reasons to not like the live action movies. Again, so moving on. Okay, so Megatron's Master Plan Part 2. I considered using just the entire 2-parter and counting it as one episode. The problem with that is then More Than Meets the Eye automatically wins, and that just didn't seem fair. So I decided to use just individual episodes. This was the one that won out for several reasons. One, for those of you who don't remember, this is Emil Berger, who is the mayor of a town, and as we will learn, mayors have complete autonomous authority to control everything within the city because it's the 80s. He's the mayor of a town that is never actually stated. He loses an election, but he's still the lame duck mayor. And Megatron strikes a deal with him, claiming that the Autobots have framed the Decepticons for all of their evil, and the Autobots are actually evil. It's not clear if Burger buys this or just is that unscrupulous, but it's the 80s, so you can look at him and tell he's evil, because that's just how it worked in the 80s. The Decepticons win a court battle against the Autobots, are heralded as heroes, because this is Decepticon Day, and the Autobots are exiled from Earth because apparently a single mayor of a single city can do that. Because, shut up, it was the 80s and cocaine is a real thing. Now, we're sitting here making fun of this, but this does draw attention to part of what made Transformers such a really good show and made these cartoons in the 80s really, really good. They addressed issues that were very real world, that were very topical. They addressed them in a very four colors kind of way that young kids could digest, but they didn't shy away from political corruption. They didn't shy away from manipulating facts to control public opinion. And it addressed it full on in a very comical and cartoony manner, but there was no dancing around what was happening here. The Autobots were getting screwed, and they were getting screwed through the legal system. That's on full view here. And it introduces kids to these much more complicated concepts that they're going to have to deal with later in life. A lot of cartoons before the 80s wouldn't deal with this. Cartoons later on would by and large be defanged, with some exceptions. Nevertheless, the Decepticons are heralded as heroes. We even see this dumbass coloring Megatron. I love this. And we see the Decepticons dancing at a discotheque. Now, it's bad enough that this loser is trying to mac on some girls and failing, but he's getting less play than Buzzsaw and Laserbeak. I'm going to let you stop here for a second and bask in the glory of seeing Laserbeak dancing at a discotheque. Now, I also want to draw some attention to the fact we know Laserbeak is male and he's dancing with a guy. I'm just going to leave that alone. It's the 80s and cocaine's a thing. I'm just going to leave that alone. Let everybody enjoy that scene there for a second. So, this also leads us to the greatest scene in all of Transformers, which is when Megatron gives the single best press conference ever. Back when this little dork is coloring this cartoon, his mom calls him and says, "Come here, honey, Megatron's on TV." And it flashes the television, and the announcer says, "We cut to you for a special press conference, now in session." And he comes to Megatron, and he says, "People of Earth, this is Megatron. Any questions?" That's the whole goddamn press conference. At this point, I want Barack Obama to do that. Just roll up, "People of Earth, this is Barack Obama." No, because his ass would actually do it. But let's not get political here, guys. It's too late, and some of us aren't drunk enough for that. So, another reason that makes Megatron's master plan really good is it's one of the few times we see Earth mount a defense against the Decepticons. We see an actual dogfight between the Decepticon Seekers and Earth jets that are totally not G.I. Joe. And they kick their ass, but it's a pretty good dogfight for an 80s cartoon. We see the Decepticons take control of this city, and they start planning to move out into the world. Their plan's working. We see the humans try to mount an offensive, and it doesn't work. So it's helping to reinforce the stakes, that we've had throughout the show. Why are the Autobots always fighting the Decepticons? Because the humans can't. That's finally getting proven to us. We see the humans get their asses kicked. Now, granted, all of the pilots successfully eject from the jets as they get shot down, but shut up, it was the 80s. Chip Chase, Spike, and Sparkplug are the only people who doubt the Decepticon story, and they end up mounting this crazy offensive. Now, the Autobots were on a rocket ship to be flown into outer space, and that's the end of episode 1. It's actually kind of a touching and poignant episode, or a touching and poignant ending. The Decepticons, of course, sabotage the rocket ship to fly them into the sun. Another thing, in one of the rare instances of Transformers actually having a good relationship with physics, is they acknowledge it will take a little while to get to the sun. They're not just gonna fly in and like hit there in an hour. It's gonna take a few days. So the Autobots are stuck and they end up sabotaging the ship, which allows Chip Chase, the punk in the wheelchair, to reprogram Teletran 1 to send them back to Earth. Regrettably, the ship ends up exploding and damn it, what's his name? Cosmos. The guy who protects the force field. Hoist. Trailbreaker, yes, thank you, Trailbreaker. Trailbreaker envelops them all in a force field, and Cosmos tracks them back to Earth for one of the single most decisive ass kickings in the entire show. We have this, it finalizes in this big fight, and we see all the Decepticons, and we see all the Autobots. It's one of the few times we see every character in a single episode. It's a very one-sided fight, but it's very, very rewarding. All around, phenomenal episode, really great art, really good animation, hits all the notes, really solid. Check it out. So, yes, sir. Yeah, it's another episode. That's I don't remember that's a Prime problem where they end up making a clone of Optimus Prime. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. They challenge Optimus multiple times. Ironhide starts shooting Prime? Oh, no, that is the one where they make the clone of Prime, but that's not where Megatron challenges them. I think Starscream challenges them. And they make a clone that Megatron controls via thought control. Again, it was the 80s, cocaine. But yeah, that's another episode. That's a pretty good one as well. Yes?
I like that one they released. It's very hot, those being a UFO takes it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we should turn into Earth machines and blend in. And then you have this guy that sounds like Peter Lorre and turns into a UFO.
No. The king of that is Skylynx. A space shuttle, of which there's like 5 in history, that turns into a giant pterodactyl Lovecraftian monster. And that's a robot in disguise. Well, I'm not sure what the hell it's disguised as, but anyway, as acid, yeah, something.
You know what the most,
All right,
the most oddest Transformer is?
Skylynx.
It's a young West East boy yet, but what happens, who Silver Bullet is. Silver Bullet is a fusion of Optimus Prime's girlfriend, Air Razor, and yes.
Tigerhawk. Oh, I thought you were talking about Silverbolt. No, that's Beast Wars. We got it. We'll deal with that once I can actually get around to the show. All right, moving on. Number 5, Autobot. Yes, Autobot. Trax and Blaster are the only 2 Autobots we see in this whole episode. This is a very small, very self-contained episode. The fate of the planet is not hanging in the balance. The fate of a country is not hanging in the balance. The fate of a city isn't hanging in the balance. This is a very small episode, and it's brilliant, and it's wonderful. It all takes place over a couple of hours, one Saturday night. It also stars the single greatest sidekick to any Transformers, Raul. Now, I don't know what his ethnic origin is. I've gotten the impression he's supposed to be Puerto Rican. He's definitely Hispanic or Latin of some variety. I don't know if he's Mexican or what. I've gotten the impression he's Puerto Rican because I think this episode takes place in either Pittsburgh or New York. Nevertheless, so there's this dance club that's attracting a lot of crazy people. It was the 80s, cocaine people, don't judge. And the Trax and Blaster start to get really suspicious about what's going on there. And they get Raul's help to investigate the club. Raul only shows up in 2 episodes, and it's a damn shame, because oh my God, he's so much better than Spike. I would so much rather have seen Raul. At one point, Trax makes a really bad pun. They get shot at by somebody with a rivet gun, and they get around the corner, and Trax is like, that was a riveting experience. And Raul turned to him and was like, I don't know why I hang out with you guys. Raul's awesome. He really is fantastic. He meets Trax by stealing him. Because Trax is like asleep or something, I don't remember, and Raul boosts him like he's a streetcar. It's great. Yeah, no, it's a shame. He should be in the Michael Bay movie. It's so great. Anyway, so what we discover is that Soundwave and Starscream are using this club to hypnotize people using subliminal messaging, cocaine, so that they will build a building off a site. It's not really explained what the building's for, what they're going to do for it. It doesn't matter. Trax gets kidnapped in what we can only assume was a bondage situation. The humans end up rescuing Trax and cluing in Blaster into what's going on. This is also the first time we're going to see Blaster and Soundwave fight. I'm not going to lie to you, this is a very underwhelming fight. It's really, really poor, and they ultimately end up, the building ends up falling down around them because they use sound waves, of course they do. The episode has a really, really great animation sequence when Raul and his 2 useless buddies are on the metro rail, and it starts overloading, and they're gonna crash over the side, and Trax and Blaster have to rescue them. Really great animation. The whole episode is very well drawn, very well animated, but that sequence alone is really spectacular and really stands out. They discovered that you can undo brainwashing caused by subliminal messaging with water because it was the 80s and cocaine. And it ends with them using Blaster as an actual boombox, which I honestly can't tell you why is so damn rewarding, but it is really great to see him. The episode also has really topical references. It's one of the few times they reference Michael Jackson and Prince, which in the 80s, you really only saw references to those kind of figures in Alvin and the Chipmunks. And the Muppet Babies. But so to get a topical reference like that was really, really rare.
And also and about themselves. About the TV show.
Yeah, but technically that wasn't aimed at kids though. But all right, any questions? All right. Yes, oh, okay. All right, number 4, Secret of Mega Supreme. Much like Dark Awakenings, this is a really emotional episode. It's not quite the gut punch that is Dark Awakenings because nobody really liked Omega Supreme because he was a terrible toy. But in the episode, an asteroid comes into Earth's orbit. The Decepticons start to mine it because, I don't know. And they discover that there's a giant monster on it because, shut up, it was the 80s, there was cocaine. And the giant monster is going to destroy all Earth because the Autobots apparently don't have lasers for some reason. They don't know why they can't destroy it, but Cosmos is the only person who can get up there, and he's monitoring the situation, but they've got to go actually fight the Decepticons, namely the Constructicons. That means they've got to send somebody else into orbit. That means Omega Supreme. Why is that picture so small? Anyway, that means Omega Supreme. Prime calls Omega and says, we've got to get the Decepticons off the orbit, but we can't, this can't be about fighting the Decepticons. We've got to get the asteroid out of orbit. The monster inside the asteroid comes up a little bit later. Omega goes crazy. He just goes full on psychotic. I don't care. I'm going to kill the Constructicons. This episode is remarkable for several reasons, dueling to the dialogue. 1, we rarely hear the term kill. We hear destroy. We hear end your life, you will be dead. We very rarely hear kill in children's entertainment. We hear it from Omega Supreme. This is also the first and one of the few times Optimus will refer to the Autobots as a military operation. This is really going to be Optimus showing real leadership as opposed to just being giant robotic John Wayne, which is what the character was originally conceived as. Optimus is going to go and talk to Omega Supreme and ask him why he hates the Constructicons specifically. Omega is going to recount the story that he was basically special police on Cybertron, tasked with guarding one of their great cities called Crystal City. 80s cocaine, shut up. He gets ambushed by the Constructicons, whom he was very good friends with, whom they had been brainwashed by Megatron and their programming had been changed. They try to reprogram Omega Supreme. They get halfway through before he's able to break free of them, and he's gone psychotic. And he is obsessed with getting revenge on them because they destroy Crystal City to get at him. Omega Supreme is consumed with rage towards the Constructicons and can barely contain himself when presented with the mere prospect of fighting them. We do get to see Omega Supreme versus Devastator. They're really not very good fights. It's really just kind of shoving one another around. It's kind of a shame. I was hoping for Bonner versus, what's his name from the UFC fight that was so good? Bonner versus, no. Forrest Griffin, Bonner versus Griffin. That was like the greatest UFC fight ever. We don't get that, regrettably. I keep holding out that maybe we'll get it eventually in a future show, but what we do get is clear, uncomfortable addressing of the exact toll the war has been taking on the Autobots. Worst of all on Omega Supreme, but on the rest of them. This guy has PTSD, plain and simple. This guy has serious emotional issues. There is no getting around that. He is seriously messed up. And it helps lay the groundwork for exactly how traumatized a lot of the Autobots are. The Autobots are not the warrior caste. The Autobots are not fighters. They're workers. They're philosophers. They're poets. They're scientists. They should not be fighting this war, and they're having to, and it's taking its toll. Omega Supreme is not okay. And when the episode ends, he is confronted by Optimus. Optimus directly orders him to abandon fighting Devastator, and he has to fight the monster so that it will leave Earth because it's going to destroy Earth because 80s cocaine, don't judge it. And Omega and Optimus actually fight. It's not a very good fight, don't get your hopes up. But again, Optimus confronts him with the mistakes Omega is making, the stakes of what will happen if he is consumed by rage, and Omega Supreme barely puts it aside. When the episode ends, Omega is not comforted by the decisions he's made. He does not feel better about giving up the Constructicons that he wanted to kill. He recognizes the good that has come from made that decision, but he is not at peace with it. This is important, again, because watching a kid's cartoon, we're confronting children with the idea that doing the right thing is not always going to feel good. You're not always going to be happy that you did the right thing. You're not always going to be filled with joy and goodness that you made the right decision. Sometimes doing the right thing is going to make you miserable. Suck it up. That's what we see with Omega Supreme. This is an excellent message coming out of this story of trauma and heartache and misery that this poor guy has been through. All right, where are we at? Okay, any questions? All right, number 3, Microbots. I'd like to point out that number 5, 4, and 3 were all written by David Weiss. I actually know very little about his career, but we need to learn more. Yes? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I know he did a lot of writing in the 80s and on a lot of different cartoons. I just don't know a lot about his background or anything like that. That's fine. Wait, what he recycles is quality, so I ain't gonna knock it. Anyway, Microbots. So the Decepticons find a ship in South America, in Peru, I believe, that has the heart of Cybertron, a magical artifact that imbues incredible, phenomenal power that we've never heard of before and we'll never hear of again because shut up cocaine, it was 80s. You may be detecting a theme. The heart of Cybertron is on a ship that crash landed on Earth after the Autobots and Decepticons did, but before they woke up, so sometime in that era. The Decepticons get it first, and it of course goes into Megatron, and he is imbued with, apparently he becomes a Sith Lord. The Autobots have a great fight against Megatron in Peru or wherever it is in South America. Beautiful animation. Hands down some of the best animation we're going to see in American cartoons in the 80s. Really great stuff. And the Autobots lose. They get their asses kicked and they hightail it. It's one of the few times we'll see them straight up retreat from the Decepticons because Megatron's been turned into Darth Sidious. So, Perceptor, this is also the first time we get introduced to Perceptor. Perceptor is getting bullied by Huffer, and he handles it like a champ. He really does. It's a great way to show this is how you deal with a bully. Perceptor contrives of a way to take out the heart of Cybertron by going into Megatron. It's a sci-fi show. At some point in any sci-fi show, everybody has to get shrunken down for at least one episode. This is that episode. So Perceptor, Huffer, and Bumblebee are all get shrunk down. What's his name? The ace, the flying dude. Power Glide, who, holy fuck. Power Glide's hysterical. If you don't remember him from the show, watch some of his episodes. There's a really great episode called The Girl Who Loves Power Glide, which is about this spoiled brat that falls in love with Power Glide, and he has to be her bodyguard. It's a really dumb episode, and the animation is really poor. A lot of it doesn't make any sense. But there's this really great episode where she screws up technology all around her because irony is a funny thing, apparently. They're on this orbiting space station that's falling to Earth, and Power Glide's trying to get it working, and she's sitting there saying, "No, I won't leave you. I love you. I'll never leave you." She's mid-sentence, and the scene switches to the door, and you see her go flying out the door. It's a really, really funny episode. Again, it's really not that good. It's just entertaining, and the art's terrible. But Power Glide's hysterical. He's kind of like Raoul. He's a really underrated character. Anyway, back to Microbots. So, they shrink down Perceptor, Huffer, and Cliffjumper. Power Glide goes to Decepticons and drops them off. Now, the way he's able to do this is because in one of the greatest scenes in all of 80s cartoons history, the Decepticons get drunk. This is so goddamn funny. They stop like 10 miles from the Autobot base and get over-energized, drinking Energon. And oh my God, because Frank Welker, who voices Megatron, owns this to a damn T. We see like, Laserbeak apparently got so drunk he crashes mid-flight. Oh my God, it's so funny. Anyway, so Megatron's the only one who wakes up. He's clearly hungover, and he attacks the Autobot base. Again, another really beautifully animated sequence of the Autobots trying to fight Megatron to buy time for Perceptor, Huffer, and Cliffjumper. Great sequence, really, really on par with like stuff we were seeing out of Robotech at the time. Really great animation. Really great animation, really great art, the framing, everything. So, that is Bumblebee, Perceptor, and Huffer riding an evil brain impulse. Yes, 80s cocaine. Huffer bump. This entire sequence is also really well animated. Huffer fights. I think he punches an evil brain impulse at some point. Yes, sir. Yeah. I know. 80s cocaine. You may be conducting a theme. Yes, sir. Yes, they caught the pink dragon. Anyway, so they get out. And they get the heart of Cybertron out, and they get out of Megatron in time as the beam is wearing off, because of course it would wear off, right? And Huffer then pitches the heart of Cybertron, this tiny little crystal, into orbit. Perceptor transforms and is monitoring it. By the way, it was going to explode, because of course it was going to explode.
But it just left it there, then.
No. It was going to explode large enough to destroy the Earth. 80s cocaine. Huffer pitches it up into the upper atmosphere, and Perceptor starts tracking it. And he starts tracking it in hundreds of miles. He's like, 500 miles, 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles. Like, this guy needs to be pitching for the Orioles. It's holy hell. Oh, so yeah, good times. All right, there was a comment back here somewhere. Yo, yes, sir. Yeah, this gets it going into a shuffle. But if I feed it forward one button, it then goes back into shuffle again. So I have to press pause with each picture. It may just be the fact that this is a really crappy computer I got from a pawn shop for $50. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate it, buddy. I'm sorry the pictures are so small. They were in no way stolen from Google.
100% more pictures than you had at
Yeah, exactly. Part of the reason I used to show, when I did the panel previously, and it was just season 1 and season 2, because that's all anybody cared about, I used to show video sequences. The reason I'm not doing that here is because I've got so many more seasons to go through. The lineup's going to be totally different next time I do this, and I don't want to have to edit episodes and then completely delete it all. So once I get through like the Unicron trilogy, I may start doing the videos again, but for now, still pictures. Anyway, all right. Yes, sir.
Well, one comment I want to point out, like with the ship that they found, I think it was like it kind of stated that it was like originally for the ship that the Decepticons came in on.
No, that wasn't. No, it definitely wasn't the Nemesis, because the Nemesis is in the ocean at that time, because they're in the Nemesis when they get out, or they find the Nemesis later. The other ship that they have that they discover is neither the Autobot or the Decepticon ship, because it arrived on Earth at a different time. Because it's being unearthed by a anthropologist at the time, and she dates it to like 2 million years ago or something like that. There was another comment. No, good. Okay, fantastic. All right, number 2. War of the Dinobots, AKA we all wanted to see Grimlock kick Optimus's ass, and we get to see it. A giant meteor is falling to Earth because shut up 80s cocaine. Chip Chase, being the universal know-it-all, is monitoring it, and he calls the Autobots for help. I'd like to point out that the meteor hits Earth and just kind of bounces. It doesn't really set off a chain reaction that reshapes the planet. It doesn't really change Earth's atmosphere or anything like that, something a meteor that size would do. Excuse me. Optimus, they want to study it because it's giving off strange radiation. Optimus sets Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge, the 3 Dinobots, to guard it. He has Wheeljack and Ratchet build 2 new Dinobots. Now this is very antithetical because later on with the aerial bots, for example, we will see that it supposedly is really hard to build a new Transformer. Apparently not, you can do it over a weekend. But that's neither here nor there. So they build Snarl and Swoop. Here they are. Snarl literally never does anything useful. At no point, at any time, in any episode, in the entire franchise of Transformers, does Snarl ever do anything useful. In fact, after this episode, the only time he ever does anything useful is to get pushed out of the way by Sludge in Dark Awakenings when they're looking out the window where Rodimus comes crashing through. That's it. He never does anything useful. Swoop really doesn't do anything useful except get his ass kicked. So they contribute nothing to the Autobot effort. Little bit. So, meanwhile, Megatron is railing against Soundwave and the Starscream and the others about how they got their ass kicked by the Dinobots a few episodes back. Megatron decides to turn the Dinobots to the Decepticons' side and does so with Soundwave's help. Now, this is really kind of neat to note that in many ways, the Dinobots have a lot more in common with the Decepticons than the Autobots. In many ways, they should be Decepticons. It's very unclear what Soundwave does to the Dinobots. He reads their minds, which is a trait he's never again shown to do. He does not brainwash them. They turn the Dinobots over to the Decepticon side simply through persuasion. There's no brainwashing, there's no blackmail, there's no arm twisting. The Dinobots do this of their own free will. It's important to keep in mind a little bit later. The Dinobots end up siding with Megatron, and they agree to not only surrender the meteorite, but when Optimus shows up, they attack Optimus. Great fight scene. One of the best fight scenes in the entire series, which is really saying something. It goes on for about 5 minutes. Optimus gives as good as he gets, but he ultimately gets his ass kicked. The Dinobots beat him, they take him prisoner, and they take him to Megatron. I want to again underscore, the Dinobots have not been brainwashed. The Dinobots are not being controlled. They're doing this of their own free will. And again, this goes back to Kids Show and addressing really ugly realities in a way that kids can digest. The Dinobots have been misled, but this is their own doing. Your friends can be turned against you. It's not just the bad guy's fault, it's also the fault of the good person doing bad things. And the Dinobots have to own up to this. They, of course, immediately turn against the Decepticons, and everything ends with a handshake at the end of the episode. But the Dinobots have betrayed the Autobots. The Autobots forgive them and let them come back into the fold. But very quietly, this issue addresses some really complicated issues that kids' cartoons at this time, and certainly before, would not address. It addresses betrayal. It addresses having to choose between who you think are your friends versus who you know are your friends. Plus, we get to see Optimus get his ass kicked by Grimlock. All right. The very final, best episode of Transformers. Let's do a recap. Number 10, Dweller in the Dark, Season 3. Number 9, Search of Alpha Trion, Season 2. Number 8, Mystery of Planet Master, Headmasters, which you should not ever watch. Number 7, Dark Awakening, Season 3. Number 6, Megatron's Master Plan, Season 2. Number 5, Autobot, Season 2. By the way, does anybody remember the first episode of Season 1, which is called Autobot X? Spike gets really badly hurt, and in order for them to perform surgery, they have to transfer his body out of his body and into an Autobot body. It is proof Optimus is not paying attention when Wheeljack talks, because I'm convinced there's no way he would have signed off on that plan if he had a clue what Wheeljack was suggesting. I'm pretty sure Wheeljack told him, because if he was paying attention, he would have been, yeah, I think we should, wait, what? Fuck no! Moron? And you also have to wonder, where was Sparkplug? Where was Spike's legal guardian? Anyway, number 4 is Secret of Omega Supreme, Season 2. Number 3 is Microbots, Season 2. Number 2 is War of the Dinobots, Season 1. Number 1, Fire in the Sky. Wait, no, wrong one. Fire in the Sky, wait, no. Wrong one. Fire in the Sky. The story of Skyfire. Can you say copyright issues? Global warming has hit. The episode opens with a blizzard in the desert. We actually see, I want to draw attention to the fact that those are pine trees, or fir trees. Those are cactuses. That's the same desert. Shh, 80s cocaine. It really is. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. There's global warming across the entire planet that we're going to learn is to the Decepticons draining energy from the heat crystals at the Earth's core. Shut up. Don't judge. Don't judge. But it's really, really fun because it sets the stage for what's going on. We see the Autobots engaged in a snowball fight. Meanwhile, Optimus is inside worrying about the global warming at play, which sets the stage for what's going on. The Decepticons discover Skyfire in the ice, and they set about repairing him and resurrecting him. We learn that he was a researcher. He's a former friend of Starscream. This is going to be one of the first times Chris Latta is really going to earn his paycheck. He really carries this episode voice acting wise. He was, in a lot of ways, he was light years better than Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. Frank Welker really doesn't do a lot in Transformers. He delivers great performances, but his phoning it in is better than most people's serious acting. Frank Welker's a goofy guy. He loves playing Fred on Scooby-Doo. He loves playing Curious George on Curious George, which is an amazing performance considering he never speaks a line. He's just squeaking and gawking and turns this adorable little monkey into a character. It's great. But Chris Latta really carries this show. This is a great episode, good art, good animation, incredible morals, really phenomenal. Anyway, we learned Starscream was actually a research scientist, and Skyfire was was one of his friends, one of his partners, one of his assistants, something. They discovered Earth before the Great War began, and that's how Skyfire got caught on Earth. They got caught in a global updraft. Starscream would circle half the globe trying to find Skyfire. These are good friends. Skyfire is going to side with the Decepticons, not knowing anything about the schism between the two, out of loyalty to Starscream. There's a really fantastic episode scene in this. Skyfire is put on patrol duty, and the Autobots arrive. Realizing that they're the bad guys, he says, and I quote, "It's time for me to make the change from science to war." That encompasses Transformers in a single sentence. That's the story of the Autobots. Skyfire has a lot of really great lines, and this is the only time he's an interesting character. Every episode after this, he's nothing but a background transportation. But this is a really emotional episode because we see his anguish. He doesn't understand what's happening, but he's quickly realizing the Decepticons are the bad guys. We also realize how malevolent the Decepticons are. They take Spike and Sparkplug hostage, and then make it clear they're going to kill them. They're not interested in returning them to the Autobots. They're not interested in keeping their word. They're going to kill the humans, which Skyfire cannot handle. Everything is, of course, culminates to the Autobots can't find the Decepticons, but some of the Autobots are captured. Skyfire is given the opportunity to execute them, and he refuses. Starscream kills Skyfire and then terminates the Autobots. We see him execute them, sort of. Come back from the commercial break, turns out Hound was able to project a hologram, and Starscream thought he killed the Autobots. They get Skyfire into cover, and Ratchet goes to work trying to save him. Again, Ratchet, an Autobot, is trying to save, right now, a Decepticon that has fired on the Autobots, who has taken their human friends hostage, but they're working on him because he needs help. That should tell you everything about the Autobots right there. The Decepticons learn that the Autobots are still alive. They attack. Great fight. One of the kick-ass fights between Optimus and Megatron. Really good. Skyfire is brought back by Ratchet by, robot CPR. It's not really explained. And Megatron orders Skyfire to beat up Optimus. Skyfire makes the dramatic change to Autobot. We have no idea where he got the sticker, but he proceeds to beat the crap out of the Decepticons single-handedly. And he has a fight with Starscream in the air. Starscream mortally wounds Skyfire in their fight, but Skyfire returns the favor. He seriously wounds Starscream and then shoots an avalanche to cover the Earth's energy crystals. Don't. which will mean the earth will reheat, please don't, but he gets caught in the avalanche and he dies. And at this point, we have no indication they're going to dig him up 3 episodes later. He's dead. And this is the burial. They hold a funeral. Spike is crying and everything. And we hear the Autobot prayer of, "We shall remember you." And the episode ends. The dude died. That's it. Holy fuck. This is an 80s cartoon. We saw somebody die. What the hell? Thank God it wasn't somebody like Optimus. I mean, shit, if that happened, I'd lock myself in my bathroom for 2 weeks. So yeah, this is, hands down, the best episode of Transformers. Pretty much across the bar, at least through Headmasters, if you have a friend who's never seen Transformers and you're going to introduce them and you're going to show them the good stuff, you start with this episode. Regrettably, that means you have nothing better to show them because this is as good as the show gets. But holy hell, this is not just a good episode. This is a good episode for cartoons. If you want to show somebody what were cartoons in the 80s like, you show them this episode. If you want to show somebody what is good American animation like, you show them this episode. If you want to show somebody what is good speculative sci-fi like, you show them this episode. If you want to show somebody a good episode of just television, you show them this episode. I'm not saying there's not like better TV, period. I'm not saying this is in the top 10 of all TV episodes, but I am going to say this episode makes a strong case for being in the top 10 of all TV episodes. It is that damn good. You don't believe me? Go buy the DVD box set at Target. Check it out for yourself. So, that's the number 1 episode. Where do we go to from here? There's a lot more to come. After the Japanese series, there's Beast Wars, Beast Machines, Robots in Disguise, the Unicron trilogy, which is Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. Then you've got Transformers Prime, then Transformers Animated, then Prime, then Rescue Bots. Yes, I'm going to review Rescue Bots. And then you've got Robots in Disguise, the new show where Bumblebee is the leader of the Autobots, not Optimus, although I hear he makes a couple of cameos. And we're going to find out who goes on top. This panel is a work in progress.
So next MAGFest?
Yes, I'm at next MAGFest. Hopefully I'll at least be through Beast Wars. We'll see. The idea here is I want you guys to check out the good episodes, maybe episodes you've forgotten. Talk amongst yourselves. What were some of your favorite episodes? What do you think were really good? What should have been up here that wasn't? And if you say anything from Headmasters, we all know you're a liar. Because no. We're here because we're fans of one of the greatest and longest running sci-fi series of all time. Transformers has been running almost continuously for 30 plus years. Only shows like Doctor Who can challenge that. There have been more episodes of Transformers than there have been of Star Trek. This is a truly epic, legendary series. Now, granted, they have not been all in the same continuity like Star Trek, but there have been more episodes of Transformers. Very few shows have run as long as Transformers has. This is a great series. If you're new to it, I strongly recommend you check it out. If you're a longtime fan, go back and check the classic episodes. My voice is gone. I'm Robert Aldrich, teachthesky.com. Come buy my books in the dealer's room. Enjoy MAGFest.